Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the YouTube channel grecochess. The channel we analyze, we discuss, we comment, and we talk about all aspects of the game of chess. I'm your host. My name is Harry Lausanisiris. If you've seen the previous video, after we played against the chess.com bot Wilson, we finally were able to defeat it. I was planning in this video to go through the puzzle rush of chess.com, meaning see how many puzzles I can get right before I get 3 puzzles wrong. First time I tried it, you saw it, 39, the second 40, and was going to break that record. But after the previous video, I had a wonderful surprise. And I'm going to share it with you. But to understand it, first of all, we need to discuss the chess rating system, the so-called ELO rating, because it was invented by a Hungarian mathematician whose last name was ELO. According to this system, the higher number you have, the stronger player you are. And the strongest player in the world is Magnus Carlsen from Norway with a rating of above 2,800. My rating. Let's share the screen and please withhold your laughter. Let's go to the correct page first. And here we are. You see that there are a variety of numbers. The most important one for over the board, because this is the OTB over the board rating when you face your opponent person to person, is a regular 1556. If you play quick games, you have a different number, 1468, and if you play even faster, the Blitz, and I have not played them yet, that's why the rating stays 1200. In a similar way, the online platforms like chess.com and Lichess have their own ratings. And chess.com, there is a daily rating for games where you have at least 1 day per move. There is a rapid where you have between 10 and 30 minutes for the entire game. You have the Blitz between 3 and 5 minutes and the Bullet with 2 minutes or less for the entire game. And we're going now to go back to September 13, 2024. And you'll see why I chose that faithful day to return. Because on that day, I had a goal to hit the mark of 1750 for the rating games, excuse me, for the Blitz games. And if you see here, this looks like lightning. The German word for lightning is Blitz. I had just gone from 1748 to 1755. I just hit the goal, and I'm going to share with you now my game from September 13, 2024, where I hit my goal. And here we are. Let's start the review, and I'm starting as usual with the Scots Gambit. It differs from the Scots as follows. At this point, instead of taking back with my knight on d4, I send my bishop on c4. If one places black, one needs to be very careful about that. There are a lot of traps. First of all, black replies the best move, knight to f6. If you send your bishop to b4 and check, this could lead to a disaster. But black played the best way. I threaten the knight with my pawn. Now, the first instinct of most players is to move the knight to safety, but if you do so, things can go very tough. Instead, Icelandic hermit knew the theory and forgot about the knight on f6. Instead threatens my bishop on c4, and I'm sending to b5. And before that, we completed 5 moves. The game is exactly even. Both of us follow theory exactly. Continue theory, takes a pawn on e4. My pawn on e4, bishop to d7. Completed 7 moves, all of them theory. And now I make a mistake. Let me tell you what mistake. Usually the bishop is more important than the knight. And that's why I took the knight on c6, not with my bishop, but with my knight. Compute, computer doesn't like too much, would rather have me take the bishop. And the reason why is because after black recovers the pawn, now I need to spend one move to save my bishop. Had I taken the bishop, my knight would be on e4 and I wouldn't need to waste a move. And in the opening, speed is very important. My bishop goes to d3, knight to c5 attacks my bishop. I develop my knight. And Icelandic Hermit takes my bishop. We completed 10 moves. I'm ahead by 0.2, almost nothing. Let's continue. Take with my queen. Bishop pings my knight. My bishop unpins it. Computer doesn't like either move. Castling for both sides. Queen to h4. Black wants to start threatening, but the queen alone cannot do too much. That's why computer thinks it's inaccuracy. My pawn to g3 to stop any ideas. Computer would rather have my pawn goes to f4, but I was afraid to open the diagonal a7 to g1 with my king, and also wanted to threaten the black queen that goes to h3. Knight to e2, I threaten the black bishop. And Icelandic Hermit threatens my queen with the bishop to f5. We completed the first 15 moves. I'm still ahead by 0.2. My queen goes to e3. And quick change bishops on d2. This is good for me because when you are defending, you want to get rid of as many attacking pieces as possible. But bishop to e4 for Icelandic Hermit and threats to checkmate on g2. There are two ways to defend it. The computer's favorite is pawn goes to f3, but I played the other move, knight to f4, which computer thinks a mistake. Queen goes to g4, threatens f3 and g2. My queen goes to e3 now, makes it impossible. But now I'm ahead by 0.3, but now Icelandic Hermit blunders. Rook to e8, and I'm ahead by 3.7. And you're going to see why. Because now I have a wonderful fork. Pawn to f3, great move. I'm going to win a piece. Queen to f5, and my advantage becomes 4.0 after the first 20 moves. I take, of course, a bishop. Icelandic Hermit takes the pawn. My knight goes to 5, and my rook on f1 threatens the queen on f5. And I'm also threatening the pawn on c7. Queen goes to e5 and saves queen and the pawn. My knight goes to c3. Rook goes to b8, threatens my pawn on b2. I save it with my rook. Computer would rather have my pawn save it. Pawn to c5. My rook to e1 and attack once again the e4 pawn. But Icelandic Hermit saves it by using the other pawn. The f pawn goes to f5. And as you see here, I'm ahead by 2.9 after 25 moves. Rook to a4. Pawn to c4. My rook to c3. Pawn to c5. I'm attacking back and forth the c5 pawn. Rook to b4. Finally, I win it, but it's inaccuracy, and you're going to see why. Because now I lose my b2 pawn. And while the c5 pawn that one was double, the b2 pawn that I lost was the one next to the a2 and c2. So this splits my pawn island a2, b2, c2 into two pieces. That is why, although it seems a pawn for a pawn, I lost more than what I got. We exchange rooks now. And after 30 moves, I'm ahead by 2.2, but now I blunder. Queen to e2. And now Icelandic Hermit is ahead by 0.3, but only if he plays correctly. Queen to b5, which did not happen. Queen to d4 looks like a fork because threatens my queen on g1 and my king on g1 and my knight on c5. There are two ways to reply, and to save both, I chose queen to f2. Computer would prefer queen to e3, but in either case, I save my knight. Queen to b2. Rook to e2. I should have taken the pawn on f5, says the computer. But then I would lose the c2 pawn. Queen to e1 check. King to g2. Pawn to e3. Mistake. Yes, threatens my queen, but my rook can take it. And Icelandic Hermit wants to exchange rooks. not a good idea. But the computer thinks the best move, but when you're down in material, you don't want to change. We completed 35 moves and I had by 4.4. Things seem to be going my way now. I take the rook, of course. And the Icelandic Hermit wants to grab whatever is possible, grabs the pawn on a2, but you see the m1. I have made next move, and it is queen to e8. I saw it, and Icelandic Hermit resigned at this point. And finally, that helped me pass the 1750 mark. I'm in 1755. And after I reached that goal, then I continued playing the bullet chess. I wanted to reach 1400. I had just passed 1300, but this would take me quite a long. From 1713, I had to go to, what's happening here? We're going to see the game. Not the game, we're going to see the information. And let's set up the correct screen. Yes, you see that on October 29th, 1.5 months later, after that, I finally hit the 1400 mark in the bullet. And after that day, after October 29th, 2024, that is about a year and 2 months, my goal was in the Blitz to hit 1400. And let's see what happened. What the surprise is that not only, let's see, I finally hit it. But let's go to the screen that starts. Let's go where? Let's go to game history and we're going to see what happened. Play game history. Here we are. And we want to put the live games. Don't confuse everybody. You're going to see that I had reached a point of, I had a lot of wins, but I had reached points, it took me more than a year to reach that level. And there are times that my rating had gone even less than 1500, starting from 1755. It started going downwards a lot after that. At the times I had reached below 1500, and it seemed that 1800 was impossible. Even to equalize 1755 in the normals took me a lot of time to do it, more than a year. But finally, I reached December 25th, that is yesterday, with a rating of 1755. And I had 3 wins in a row after that. And let's give a look at these wins. We're going to, after these 3 wins, you see that I finally hit the 1800. And we're going now to see the 3 games that made me finally hit the barrier of 1800. The first one was against Junichi 27 from Germany. Wait a minute. I want to enlarge my screen. Seems to be too small. Here we are. And I have the black pieces. Unity starts with e4, e6, the French defense for me, d4, d5, knight to c3, knight to f6, bishop to d3, usually the way I like to play the French. Pawn to c5, and Unity 27 takes with a pawn. Until now it is theory, and I make the mistake to take with a knight. The inaccuracies as a computer. Ideally, I should have taken with a pawn on d4. Completed 5 moves, and Unity 27 is ahead by 0.2. Change the on c5. Knight c3, kingside castling for me. Same for Unity 27. For my pawn to h6, I don't want the bishop to go to g5 and threaten my queen on d8. Knight to e5 for Unity, and now I take the knight on c3 and double the pawns of Unity 27. My bishop is on d6 and threatens the knight on e5. We completed the first 10 moves, and Unity 27 is ahead by 0.5. Knight goes to g4. And my knight goes to c6. Computer thinks it's a blunder, and believe it or not, now I'm down by 4.7. Knight to h6, check, brilliant move. Take back, and now I'm really scared. Yes, I got a piece, but my king is too exposed. Bishop to h6. Computer would rather have the queen go to g4, and now, yes, it's very, very dangerous for me, even though the computer thinks I'm ahead by 3.1. My queen goes to f6 instead of h4, and now, believe it or not, I'm down by 5.0. It seems to be completely lost. I lose an exchange. Queen to h5. Seems that I have to be very careful because my king is too exposed, even though I have more material. Not even that. If you look at the material, Junichi has +1 because they got one of my rooks. My king goes to e7. We completed 15 moves. I'm ahead by 1.9, but I didn't know it at the game. Queen to b5. Threatens to come from the other direction. My pawn to a6. Queen to b6. I have to be careful what to do. I decided to give away the pawn on b7 by putting my bishop on d7 so that my rook on a8 would be free. Queen takes the pawn. My rook goes to b8 and threatens the queen on b7. Queen to h6. And now I thought I had a good chance of attacking if I sacrifice my bishop. But the computer thinks a blunder, and now I'm down by 2.0. King takes it, queen to h4 check, king to g1, and my rook to h8. Now I'm down by 2.1, but I had a very dangerous attack. If I could play second move in a row, queen can go either h2 or h1, and it's mate. And Unity 27 replies by sending the pawn to f3. Look at the material. Unity 27 is ahead by plus 0.5. It's important. I go to g3, hoping to put rook on h2 and then checkmate. Queen to a3 check, queen to f6. And now I'm down by 2.6. Pawn to c4, bad idea. And now I'm ahead by 4.5. And my rook goes to h2, great move. I'm threatening with mate. Not too many ways to avoid it. Unless Unity 27 checks, they have to put the rook on f2. Yes, they check from c3. My knight covers the check on e5. Not the best way. Queen to d2. Instead of putting the rook on f2. And after the first 25 moves, let's see how's the score. Unity 27 is ahead by 1.5. This game goes back and forth, as you see. Of course, we have very little time, a little bit more than 2 minutes, you see. These are the times that we have remaining. My queen goes to h4 and threatens with mate. If my rook goes to h1 now, it's mate. But Unity 27 is going to stop it by checking with the queen. Now can I take with the king or with the queen? If I take with the king, the threat move is still there. With the queen, yes, I'm ahead, but I don't have a mating threat. I take with the king, and me too, you see. Before it was, actually not m2, before it was m3, mating 3 moves, now it is mating 2 moves. Pawn goes to f5 to check, to f4, king to h6. Pawn takes my knight, and now checkmate. And so in a game that went back and forth with lots of errors from both sides, I was finally able to win. And then by winning, I went from 1775 to 1783. But still, I haven't yet made it. In November 24, I had hit 1791. I was one game from 1800, but I started going down. Let's see if this time I can make it or not. Next game I'm playing from Jump Bonk. What's the name of this player? From North Macedonia, I think it's a country. Yes. I have the white now. Pawn to h4, pawn to d5, Scandinavian defense, I take it. Knight f6, a great move for Jump Bonk because they'll not have to use the queen to take the pawn and then be threatened by the knight on c3. So they take it with the knight. My pawn goes to d4. We're leaving theory. Problem with that is theory would rather have my knight go to 3. Jump Bonk could double my knights by taking my knight on c3. That's not what they do instead. Bishop to f5. And now I take the knight, takes back, and after 5 moves, I'm ahead by 0.1. Next move, pawn to c3, knight to c6. Knight to f3, queenside castling for Jump Bonk. My bishop goes to e2. Mistakes as a computer. Pawn to e5, great move from Jump Bonk. Kingside castling and pawn to e4. And at this point, after first 10 moves, I'm ahead by 0.8. My knight goes to d2. Bishop to d6 from Jump Bonk threatens my pawn on h2. 10 moves have completed, I'm ahead by 2.3. Bishop to c4, great move, threatened the black queen, which goes to a5. I think only the only square where it could be safe. Pawn to b4, attack the queen again. And now Jim Bonk thought that the queen was going to be lost eventually, so decided to take at least the 2 pawns while they are still being offered. Pawn to a3, knight to d3, and I'm taking with my bishop, and Jump Bonk takes the pawn. Completed 15 moves, I'm ahead by 2.6. Pawn to f3, pawn to g6, rook to b1, and queen to a6. Now the pawn on d3 is very dangerous, protected both by the queen on a6 and the bishop on f5. And if I'm not careful, it might eventually promote, especially if pieces are exchanged, because now only pieces stop it. It is a passed pawn. Rook to e1, rook to d6, my pawn on d4. Now I'm 4.4 ahead. Queen goes to e3. I should have placed my... if I place my bishop on b2, I attack simultaneously both rooks and they win at least an exchange. But I missed it. Rook to d8 goes back. Queen to e5. Rook to e8. Now I have to be careful because look what's happening. We finished 20 moves. I'm ahead by 1.4. If I move my queen anywhere, I lose the rook on e1. Yes, the knight can stop the mate, but I'm very much below. So I do the only thing that was possible, exchange my queen for the 2 rooks. Great the computer as if I had any other choice. King to d7 threatens my rook. My rook to f8 threatens the pawn on f7, but I lose the open e file. Bishop to e6. My knight goes to e4. Pawn to b6. Oh, you see the board to the left goes up and down. My rook goes to h8, threatening the pawn on h7, and pawn goes to h5. Complete 25 moves, I'm ahead by 1.4, but this game goes back and forth. Bishop to t2 at least stops the pawn from advancing. Queen to c4. My rook to c1, and this is a blunder. I'm threatening the queen, but queen can take my knight. Now I'm down by 4.5, and you're going to see in 3 moves, the game is over. Queen takes my knight. Jumbonk is ahead by 4.5. My pawn goes to 3. And this is, let's see, a mistake. So inaccuracy, in fact. 6.4. Jumbonk is ahead by 6.4. It seems to be hopeless. Queen goes to e2 from Jumbonk. Yeah, yes, not the best, but still ahead by 4.7. My bishop goes to g5. The best move. And I'm down by 4.7. Jumbonk has a huge advantage, 4.7. And you're going to see the game is near the end because Jumbonk missed something. Pawn to d2 and the 4.7 for Jumbonk becomes a1 for me. And I saw it with 1 minute and 12 seconds on my clock. Checkmate. So in a position where I was down by a huge amount, I saw the mate and won the game. And let's go now to the last game, the game that really make me hit the 1800 mark. I'm playing now against Abduk Salibeh from Uzbekistan. Let's see how this game went. Pawn to e4, pawn to e5, knight f3, pawn to d6, pawn to d4. And now this is what's called the Philido defense. It's supposed to be very strong at the very top player, but at our level it's okay. Now we complete the book moves and good move, in fact excellent move for Abduk Salibeh, bishop to e7, my knight to c3, bishop to f6. We completed the first 5 moves in my head by 1.1. Bishop to e3, knight to e7, bishop to e2, kingside castling for Abduk Salibeh, queen to d3, knight to g6, sides are developing. Pawn to h3, I don't like either bishop or knight of, no, I don't want the bishop of black to go to g4, but computer thinks a mistake. Basically, it's a waste of a move. Pawn to a6, what should Abduk Salibeh have done? Develop the knight. My knight goes to 3, pawn to b5, Abduk Salibeh is trying an attack on the queen side. We completed 10 moves and I'm ahead by 0.8. Game is more or less even. Pawn to a3, pawn to c5, queen to d5, threatens the rook on a8. Rook goes to e7, the only square they could go. Queenside castling for me, not a good idea as a computer. Rook to d7, extra defense for the d6 pawn. The computer would rather have the bishop take my knight because then I would double the pawns on the c file and my king would be very exposed. My bishop goes to f4, blunders as a computer. I was hoping to win the d6 pawn. Computer thinks I'm down by 4.7. Remember last game? Well, even more than that at some point below. But now I lose my bishop. I didn't see the knight on g6 took my bishop on f4. I'm down by 4.7, queen to d2. At least not lose my queen. I already lost a bishop. I'm down in material by 1 piece. Now to g6. My king goes to b1, be a little safer. Pawn to b4. Abduk Salibeh wants to open the space in front of my king. We change pawns. Knight to d5, threatens the pawn on b4 twice. Knight to c6. I take the pawn and we exchange on b4. Rook to b7. Now my queen on b4 not only is in danger, but if it goes away, I lose the pawn on b2. And after 20 moves, the Abduk Salibeh has an advantage of 5.5, each enormous. What can I do? At the time, of course, I was feeling very bad. Queen to d6, at least let's win the free pawn. Rook to b2 check. My king, of course, a1 means discover check, forget it. c1. Queen to a5, threatens mate on a1 if I'm not careful. So I'm blocking. No, no, it doesn't because I have the escape square on d2, but then rook can go to d8. And really then my queen is pinned. Let's see. Pawn to e5 blocks the bishop. Bishop takes. Knight takes, rook goes to b6. My knight takes the black knight on g6. Rook takes my queen. And after 25 moves, I'm down by 5.9. Believe it or not, I was careless and I lost my queen. Knight e7. Well, at least I not lose an extra rook. King to h8, and now I take the rook. Queen to a3, king to b1. And queen, you see now m7. In 7 moves, if Abduk Saliba plays correctly, they mate me. 7 moves until mate. And they'll play the first move, they take my rook. That is the obvious one. Of course, ideally they would have sent bishop to e6. It's not m any longer, but I'm still down by 6.6. And materially, I'm down by +6, you see. It's terrible. My knight to f5 threatens the queen. Bishop takes my knight. I lose bishop. My bishop goes to d3. And you see it's m3 now. In 3 moves, if Abdul Salim plays correctly, in 3 moves, they mate. If I take my bishop instead of sending the queen to a3, but still it's m5. After 30 moves, I'm down by m5, 5 moves mate. What can I do? Let's at least let's take the bishop. Still m3. The rook, m4, checks, c2. Look, now it's m4, m3, m4 again, m3, and between m3 and m4. m4 now, I lose another pawn, rook to e1, m4 to a2, rook to c2. 4 moves until I made it. But my king goes to a3, queen to b2 check, m3 now, a4, b5 check, to a3. Rook to c3. And you see now that after 40 moves, my opponent, Abduk Saliba, is 3 moves from checkmating me. I'm 3 moves from losing everything. And my dream of 1800 will have to be postponed once again. But the good thing is that Abduk Saliba had only 18.5 seconds on the clock, which might help me avoid the worst. King to a2, the only move. Queen to b3 check. Again, I'm 3. King to a1, the only move. And at this moment, Abduk Saliba is once again 3 moves from checkmating me. All they get to do is go queen a3 check, my king goes to b1, rook to b3 check, king to c2, and I think they checkmate if I'm correct. But instead, what did they play? What did Abduk Saliba play? Rook to c2, and suddenly it is m1 for me. I see the chance with 15.3 seconds from Abduk Saliba and 1 minute 43 seconds for me. Checkmate. Incredible. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Abdul Saliba had forgotten their back rank. So that was this game. The very lucky game that helped me go to 1800. And then my next goal was the bullets to see if I can go from 1400 to 1500. But things did not go that well. I have been going down quite a lot. I'm down now to 1340. But it takes some time for transition. But that's it for now. I had a wonderful surprise yesterday. A goal that I had for a year and 2 months finally became a reality. Hit 1800 for the bullet. And this evening, round number 4 from the Queen's Chess Tournament, the December Swiss. We'll have more about that in the next video. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, for the likes, for the comments. I'm Harilos Anitiris. This is grecochess. And for now, goodbye.